Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Colorado Geographer. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the control cities for Colorado Highway 2, which most of this road is known as Colorado Boulevard, and we're going to pass by some well-known sites in Denver such as the Cherry Creek Mall, the Denver Zoo, and the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. I've been on a lot of this road, unlike the previous road I covered. I actually have been on Colorado 2 a number of times, not all of it, but we're also going to see how awful of a northern terminus this road has. Freaking CDOT. Anyway, if you like going to the zoo, please give this video a like and leave a comment on your favorite exhibit of the zoo or the road you used to get there. And if you really enjoyed this content, please feel free to subscribe. Colorado 2 is just under 20 miles long, but it should be 25 miles long, and runs from US 285 near the Wilshire neighborhood of the south area of Denver to Interstate 76 and US 6 south of Brighton. Again, why does CDOT make stupid choices? I don't know. Anyways, let's get into it. We're currently on Southbound US 285, signed as Hampton Avenue, and we get the sign for North Colorado 2, signed as Colorado Boulevard, which I do agree with. No need to sign any cities on this. We're going to be in Denver pretty much the whole time this road is Colorado Boulevard. But 2 is not going to be signed northbound on 285. I don't know why this is. Here's a better look at the intersection between Hampton Avenue and Colorado Boulevard. The first moments of Colorado 2 pass by the Mime Eisenhower Park and the Wilshire Golf Course, which in my opinion is the prettiest section of the entire highway. And you can also see in the background there's a noise ordinance enforced speed limit. I don't know what this means. I guess there might be a lot of loud cars maybe on this road that are traveling on it. I don't know why this is here. If any of you know what this means, please leave a comment below telling me what this means. Here's the turnoff to get to the Eisenhower Park here. And we don't get our first reassurance shield of Colorado 2 until we get about 1.5 miles up the road. There's not one at the beginning. And also, it's just 2. This should be North 2. Why? Off of Colorado 2, there's this Dave & Buster's, which I've never been to it, but you can see it off of the intersection of Colorado 2 and I-25. I have passed by this place multiple times, but again, I've never actually been to a Dave & Buster's. Speaking of I-25, we are approaching the intersection between Colorado 2 and I-25. There is no southbound access to I-25 from Colorado 2 northbound, so if you want to go there, you have to get off here on Evans Avenue. And about 1 mile later up the road, we get our turn left sign for northbound I-25 with no control city. Here's a better look at that intersection to I-25 North. And here's a look at Colorado 2 as Colorado Boulevard entering the Cherry Creek Business District. My parents have actually stayed at this Fairfield Inn that you see over to our right. I have not, but my parents and my family have stayed here. Here's a really cool little boba tea shop off of Colorado 2. This is a very meaningful place to me. This is the Lolly Cup Tea Zone. In November of 2022, this was my junior year of college. The girl who I was dating at the time left me out of nowhere, and a very dear friend of mine wanted to take me here to get boba because she thought that's what I needed at the time. We had a very fun drive, even though I was crying for half of it. We went to the Lolly Cup Tea Zone and got boba, and then we went down to the Park Meadows Mall together. So this is a very meaningful place to me. They have really, really good boba. Definitely would recommend stopping here. Also, if my friend here, you know who you are. I'm not going to mention your name for privacy reasons, but thank you so much again for helping me get through that time in my life. This is another site that's just off of Colorado Boulevard. This is the main campus for the Archdiocese of Denver, which I've actually been here for a priesthood discernment retreat one time. This happened in March of 2023. By the way, I am Catholic. I actually did come here one time for, again, the priesthood discernment retreat. I'm no longer discerning the priesthood because I do have a girlfriend now. Here's our first exit for the Cherry Creek Mall. This is the Cherry Creek Drive intersection. I don't know what this is about signing Colorado 2 just as 2 with no directional sign, not even north. Doesn't make much sense here. Here's our intersection with Alameda Avenue. This is another way to get to the Cherry Creek Mall. For those of you who remember when I was talking last week about US 87, I am eventually going to do a video where I completely re-sign it in Colorado. Even though this is not actually true, I'm going to be recreating it and redesigning it. And this is where eventually I am going to have US 87 intersect Colorado Highway 2. Spoiler alert. That video's not going to come out for a few more years. We're about to meet up with Colorado 83. Not signed here on Colorado 2. There's no mention of it. I don't know why that is here. Ugh. I would sign 83 here, but Colorado 83 is going to be where I'm going to put US 87, so I'm not going to bother signing it here. Here's a better look at that Leetsdale Drive intersection. And in the background, we can actually see the sign for South Colorado 83. I feel like this should still be on Colorado Boulevard. And finally, we get the first reassurance shield for North Colorado 2. Keep in mind, we are like 5 or 6 miles up the road. Ugh. This is what it should have been from the start. We're meeting US 40 and US 287 concurrent, signed as Colfax Avenue. But 40 and 287 are not signed on Colorado 2. They are one of the more major highways in the country. They should be signed on here. I don't know why it's not signed. And this is how I would sign it here. 40 and 287 signed as Colfax Avenue. No need for Control City. Colorado 2, though, is signed on 40 and 287, and it's just Junction Colorado 2 coming up, which is fine enough. No need for Control Cities here either. A few blocks up, Colorado 2 passes by Denver City Park, which is the largest park in Denver at 317 acres. Yeesh. This is also where the Museum of Nature and Science is, as well as the Denver Zoo. In fact, speaking of the Museum of Nature and Science, here is the entrance to it. You just make a left turn off of Northbound Colorado 2, and this is where you enter. My grandfather actually used to volunteer here, and I've also taken several field trips here when I was in middle school and high school. And I've also been here multiple times with my family, so I'm guessing I've probably been here 10 times, although my last trip here was probably 7 years ago, so I know this place relatively well, but I probably need a couple of refreshers here. Here's a look at the Denver Zoo, which is again also off of Colorado 2. I was here when I was a kid, probably 20 years ago, and the only thing that I remember about this Denver Zoo is the elevator and the parking deck. The floors are reversed, so floor 4 is the bottom floor, where floor 1 is the top floor. And I got mad that my friend pushed the call button, and I made a fuss for the rest of the day about it. I look back on this to this day and laugh. Here's a look at Colorado Highway 2 northbound in the northern Denver area. Here we are approaching the intersection with Interstate 70, which does not have Control City signed on it, and this is probably for the best. On I-70, Colorado 2 is signed as Colorado Boulevard, which makes sense. I could see an argument, though, for Colorado 2 being signed north as Colorado Boulevard, Commerce City, but that's what should be on the US 85 and US 6 sign for Vasquez Boulevard here. We'll talk about that when we get there. And here's another North Colorado 2 sign in its last few moments as Colorado Boulevard. And we are now crossing into the city limits of Commerce City, which is not signed. I don't know why that's the case. I mean, I understand we are about to merge on with Vasquez Boulevard, but I would still sign it, and this is where I'd put it. And again, we are approaching US 85 and US 6 as Vasquez Boulevard, and Colorado 2 is going to run concurrent with it. We get this Commerce City sign here on Vasquez Boulevard just immediately before Colorado Boulevard ends and merges onto it. Here's where Colorado 2 merges onto 85 and 6, and again, we are going to run concurrent with it. We'll look at the concurrency when we head southbound. Here's where Colorado 2 leaves US 85 and US 6, and it's signed as Old Colorado 2 East. What the heck is this? This is absolutely stupid. This is actually Colorado 2. This is not old. This is current Colorado 2. And why is Colorado 2 signed eastbound? It's always been signed northbound. I mean, I do understand we are running northeast from here, but this should still be north. We need to stay consistent. Ugh. Freaking CDOT. This is what I would sign here. I would sign Colorado 2 north for Turnberry and Brighton. Even though I know the quicker way to Brighton is to take 85 to 76 and then back to 85, 2 used to go there too. And that's, in my opinion, what should be signed. For the record, by the way, Turnberry is one of the neighborhoods of Northeast Commerce City, and it's actually where the current awful northern terminus of Colorado 2 is, and that's where we meet up with I-76. Here's a better look at that actual split. In case you wanted to head back on southbound, not westbound Colorado 2, you could turn left here. Here's a look at the quote-unquote eastbound 2 in northeastern Commerce City. I would like to see a mileage sign here, and this is what I have. I'd have Irondale, which is another Commerce City neighborhood, in 3 miles, Turnberry in 7 miles, and then Brighton as our primary control in 14. We are currently north of Irondale, and here's a look at Colorado 2, which is a pretty boring road. We're meeting up with Colorado 44 westbound. This is the eastern terminus of Colorado 44, signed as 104th Avenue. Makes sense. Here's a look at the Colorado 2 sign here at the intersection. We're looking here into Turnberry now, which is mainly just houses and apartment complexes and duplexes. And there's also a school, Turnberry Elementary School. All of these appear to be a bit newer. Just before the current quote-unquote terminus of Colorado 2, we are passing by the Bison Recreation Center, which has a pretty cool looking water slide here. Here we are meeting up with I-76 and US 6 concurrent, which have no control cities, which is, again, probably for the best. This is also the start of the signage for Sable Boulevard. Here is where we completely flop here. Sable Boulevard is technically Colorado 2 for a little bit, and it's not even signed on I-76. This is absolutely stupid. Why are you not signing a relatively major Colorado highway on a freaking interstate? But back in 2013, Colorado 2 was originally signed on I-76 as Sable Boulevard to the Denver airport. This is the way to get to DIA from 76 eastbound because there's no interchange with the toll road. This here is technically the northern terminus of Colorado 2 here at 120th Avenue. This is absolutely horrible. N2 is not signed. Not only that, there's more highways that we're going to come to north of the northern terminus. C-dot gonna C-dot. And because it's not signed, people are gonna be really confused here. This is what I would do. Colorado 2 used to go all the way to Brighton, and that's actually where I'm going to sign it to. For the purposes of this channel, this is how Colorado 2 is going to be signed. On 120th Avenue, we have this confusing sign. South Colorado 2 turn left to I-76, but ahead on another sign, it says Colorado 2 turn both directions. Again, this is why I have Colorado 2 going to Brighton here. We have to go all the way back to 2012 for this, when Colorado 2 was still originally signed. And here we have Colorado 22 signed as 124th Avenue westbound for Henderson. Spoiler alert, Colorado 22 is an absolutely useless highway. It's 1.5 miles long. Ugh. But Colorado 2 is still signed north here at Sable Boulevard, and we do have this reassurance shield here in the background, which this was really cool. I don't know why CDOT did away with this. Ugh. Obviously, there is no mileage sign because, again, Colorado 2 no longer exists, but if I had to put one here, this is where I would put it. And I do feel like this is necessary because we just had 3 relatively major junctions, I-76, and then 120th Avenue to E-470, and then 124th Avenue signed as the stupid Colorado 22. I would sign Brighton as our secondary in 3 miles and Fort Lupton as our primary in 11, even though that Brighton is more sensible to just sign by itself. Again, I don't like it when there's just 2 cities on a mileage sign. Fort Lupton would make sense to me because 2 just ends a couple of blocks away from the interchange between Colorado 7 and US 85. Here's where we enter into the Brighton city limits, which for some reason is not signed. Here's where I'd put it though, and welcome to Brighton. This is one of the more well-known suburbs of Denver. It has about 40,000 people in it. Right about here is where Sable Boulevard turns into 4th Avenue. Here's our approach into downtown Brighton, and this tall building on the right is the Brighton City Hall, which I believe is the tallest building in Brighton. A short time later, we are coming close to the northern terminus of Colorado Highway 2. This is a picture back from 2007, and we get this really cool End 2 sign about a block before the northern end. Back to 2024 Street View, here's a better look at that intersection with Colorado 2 and Colorado 7 signed as Bridge Street. Back in the 2008 Street View, we get this nice sign for 7 birth directions and to turn left. And this is where I would sign the northern terminus of Colorado 2, and it's where the old terminus used to be. Okay, let's go ahead and turn back around. We are going eastbound on Colorado 7, and we get the sign for Colorado 2, 4th Avenue, turn right. Probably should have signage for Commerce City here, but I think just 4th Avenue by itself is perfect because the quicker way to Commerce City is to take 85. We're back in 2007 once again, and we have this actually really cool sign that says Begin Colorado 2. I think this is the only sign that has Begin State Highway here, which this is really, really cool. Is this unnecessary? Yes. Is it cool though? Absolutely. We're on Southbound Colorado 2 leaving Brighton here, and we are now back on Sable Boulevard, which there's no mileage sign here, which I feel like there should be one. I would sign Commerce City as the secondary in 11 and Denver as the primary in 15. The Commerce City's mileage sign would be closer to downtown Commerce City than the actual city limit, which is about 3 or 4 miles down the road. Here's where we meet with that pathetic Colorado 22 again. There has never been a South 2 reassurance shield. I did check all the way back. It has always been signed as 2 I-76. 2 South should definitely be here, which I would sign Colorado 2 South as Sable Boulevard, or I would co-sign Sable Boulevard Commerce City. Either one of those works. Here we are back at the official northern terminus of Colorado 2, and here's the first reassurance shield for South Colorado 2. Here's where I meet up with I-76 again with no control city. Here's a look onto I-76 here from Southbound Colorado 2. Sable Boulevard technically ends here. Here's a better view of the Bison Rec Center. Looks like a really, really nice building. Once again, here's the intersection with Colorado 44. Spoiler alerts, I'd extend Colorado 44's eastern end to E470. Here's where we start our approach into the downtown-ish area of Commerce City, which is where I would put the city limit sign at. You can also see the Denver skyline in the background here. And here we are meeting up with US 85 and US 6's Vasquez Boulevard. And once again, this is where Southbound Colorado 2 goes. Since we didn't look at the concurrency northbound, we're going to go ahead and take a look at it here. We're currently meeting up with I-270 and US 36, signed sensibly westbound for Boulder. Makes sense. And eastbound for Lyman, possibly the world's worst interstate control city. This should be Aurora. It's okay to sign a suburb for a 3-digit interstate. I'll resign this when we get to US 6 here. On I-270, we get the signs for US 85 and Colorado 2 signed as Vasquez Boulevard, but US 6 is not on there, which is awkward. Here's a split with Colorado 2 and US 85 and 6, and this is also the northern end of Colorado Boulevard. No access to East I-70 from Vasquez Boulevard, so that's why East I-70 is on the sign here on Colorado Boulevard. Again, US 6 is not mentioned on here. Awkward. Here's a look at the bridge over Vasquez Boulevard, and we get this really, really incredible view of the Denver skyline here. We get our first South Colorado 2 reassurance shield here, and this is where we enter the Mile High City, also known as Denver. This is where I'd put the city limit sign, and again, there's no city limit sign for it. Once again, we're meeting up with Interstate 70, and we get this overhead sign for 70 West with no control city, and we get our intersection with the eastbound I-70 ramp. Again, no control city, probably for the best. We're passing by City Park once again, and we get this really cool view of the City Park Golf Course. We're back at Colfax Avenue once again, and in fact, this is actually the longest road in Denver and the greater Denver metro area at over 53 miles. Yeesh. Here's another view into the Cherry Creek Business District heading southbound. And here's a fact, I've actually been to this Hyatt Place here. It's actually not on this tall building. It's actually on a smaller building. This tall building is an office building of some sort, and I actually don't know the name of it. We're meeting up with I-25. For the first time on this channel, we're going to see control cities for I-25. Northbound is sensibly signed for Fort Collins. And here we are on going to change for Southbound I-25, which is signed for Colorado Springs, which is a weird entrance on a Southbound 25, but at least we do get some really reasonable control cities for I-25. Here's a look at Colorado 2 as Colorado Boulevard, now heading into the University District of Denver. This tall building in the background here is the Wilshire Apartments, which opened, I believe, in 2020. So this is a relatively new building. We're heading to the Wilshire Golf Course here, and we get this old clubhouse to the right. The golf course itself opened in 1926, so it's almost 100 years old, and this is a beautiful, beautiful building. Here's a look at some of the golf courses as we near the end of Colorado 2. And we are at the southern terminus for Colorado 2. This is a nice overhead sign for US 285, signed as Hampton Avenue in both directions, which makes sense. Again, in my opinion, no need to worry about control cities yet for US 285. And here's a better look at Hampton Avenue and Colorado Boulevard. And here's the official end of Colorado Highway 2. All right, now let's take a look at Sumner's control city picks for Colorado Highway 2. The control cities for Northbound should be Colorado Boulevard all the way up to the concurrency with Vacaz Boulevard, although co-signing Colorado Boulevard Commerce City works fine after I-70. Then I would sign after the concurrency with US 85 and US 6, Turnberry, Brighton, and then finally Sable Boulevard, Brighton. Southbound should be 4th Avenue and Commerce City together, then Sable Boulevard and Commerce City together, then just Commerce City by itself until the US 85 and US 6 concurrency, and then finally Colorado Boulevard all the way down. This road is horribly signed in quite a few spots, and especially the northern terminus is just awful. But again, this is how I would sign it, and I would personally prefer to see some better signage here, and of course move the northern terminus back to Brighton. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Should 2 go to Brighton? Should it stay where it is? Do you disagree with anything? Let me know. Next week, we're going to be taking a look at Colorado Highway 3, so we're going to head to Durango for the first time in this channel. And 3 itself is a really beautiful drive, but the highway itself is so short, its existence is almost pointless. But in a way, it's a pretty useful road. But that's going to be coming up next week. Once again, if you enjoyed this content, please feel free to like and subscribe. This is Sumner signing off for the Colorado Geographer, and I will see you guys next week.